Hey everybody, wake up. This is Wake Up with Mark Joyner, episode number 72. And today we will discuss Russians sowing racial discord. All right, so we hear this story today that the Russians have been trying to sow racial discord between blacks and whites in America. Now, it's a very interesting thing. Is this happening? Is this happening? There's actually something more important for us to ask as to whether or not it's happening. Let me get to that in a minute. First, let's ask whether or not this is a real thing. So first off, I would not even be mildly surprised if that were happening. I wouldn't be surprised if the Russians are doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese were doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if many nations were attempting to sow discord in the United States through various channels, probably by influencing the media, influencing social media. There are many different ways that this can be accomplished. Okay, I don't think this is by any stretch of the imagination a new thing, and I don't think it's anything that we are immune to in the United States. If you read some real history and you look at unclassified documents about things that we have done around the world, you will find that this is not necessarily something exclusive to Russia, okay? And it's something that we have been engaged in as well. We have sowed the seeds of discord in other countries. If you don't believe that, look into it. You'll show to yourself that it's true, at least as best as we can know. We weren't actually present at any of these events. We can only go by the documents that we see. Now, to me, I would lend a little bit more weight to documents that I would discover through declassification, through the Freedom of Information Act, than I would from an article. Now, I'm going to read to you a little bit from this article from NBC News. Now, keep in mind, I'm not trying to say that the Russians are not doing this. Maybe they are. Maybe it's the Russians, or maybe it's some other people, maybe it's a combination thereof, or maybe this is something that we want people to believe. When I say we, I mean, I don't know who we're really talking about here. Whoever it is that wrote this article wants us to believe a particular conclusion. Now let's read the headline. Russian documents reveal desire to sow racial discord and violence in the U.S. The revelations come as U.S. intelligence agencies have warned of probable Russian meddling in the 2020 election. Now, that sounds very matter of fact. It sounds like this is a proven fact, that this is something that has been revealed for sure. Okay, but let's read the actual article. This is from London. Russians who were linked to interference in the 2016 U.S. election discussed ambitious plans to stoke unrest and even violence inside the U.S. as recently as 2018, according to documents reviewed by NBC News. Okay, according to documents reviewed by NBC News. Now you might ask, well, what are these documents? Were they little scraps of paper scribbled on by, goodness knows who? Well, they give us a little bit of information sometimes, in this case. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just say, according to sources, according to unnamed sources, according to anonymous sources. What are you supposed to do with that information? But you buy it as truth, don't you? Because you read the headline, and the headline presents it as truth, but most of us don't dig deep enough and ask the question, is this article actually telling us the truth? What is the upon which this information is being presented to us? Are these statements actually true, and how can we know? Let's read a little bit further. The documents, communications between associates of Yevgeny Prigozhin, I'm probably pronouncing his name incorrectly, a Kremlin-linked oligarch indicted by special counsel Robert Mueller for previous influence operations against the U.S. Okay, now let's look at that. A Kremlin-linked oligarch. What is that exactly? What is his link to the Kremlin? Is he a Kremlin operative? Does he have a relative who is in the Kremlin? I mean, what is this link? It just says Kremlin-linked oligarch. That's not actually useful information, because that could mean anything. So so it says the documents, and they explain what the documents are. the communications between, well, it says between associates of this gentleman, okay? And they say that the documents, and I'm quoting again, laid out a new plot to manipulate and radicalize African Americans. The plans show that Prigozhin's circle has sought to exploit racial tensions well beyond Russia's social media and misinformation efforts tied to the 2016 election. Now, it shows that they have sought to exploit. What does that actually mean as well? Okay, so we're not actually seeing the documents here. We're not actually knowing how they're coming to this conclusion. So if you watched me yesterday, you'll remember how I was talking about a lot of the papers that you see in research journals, will often show an abstract, but then when you read the actual paper itself, you see that the conclusion that is come to in the abstract is not necessarily supported by the actual research itself. That the abstract and the research often have a very big disconnect. Now, the peer review system is supposed to catch this, right? But it doesn't always. In fact, we know that peer review is so broken that people have submitted papers that say things like, click my stupid spam link over and over and over again, and it passes peer review, right? So do we know that just because a scientific paper is published in a journal, do we know that it's legitimate? No, we don't. Do we know that newspapers and magazines are following such a strict code of journalistic ethics? For example, the actual code of journalistic ethics. Can we trust that they're following it so closely that what they're presenting us is actually a genuine representation of the evidence? No, we can't know that either, because in fact we know that many reporters even create stories from whole cloth. If you haven't seen the film Shattered Glass, go watch that. It is a true story about how, and I believe it was the National Review, there was one reporter who was straight fabricating stories out of nothing, and he got away with it for years. Okay, so if you think that there's some editors up there, rolling up their sleeves saying, well, let's verify all these sources, I think that you are operating under an incorrect assumption. Okay, now there are probably some newsrooms out there that are trying to do their best to get it right. But if you just look at this stuff on the surface, you can see that most of it is pretty freaking flimsy. Now let me read you one more paragraph here, okay? The documents were obtained through the Dossier Center, a London-based investigative project funded by Russian opposition figure Mikhail Hodorkovsky. NBC News has not independently verified the materials, but forensic analysis by the Dossier Center appeared to substantiate the communications. Now, does that sound like strong enough evidence for you to base an entire article where you're going to lead with this statement? Russian documents reveal desire to sow racial discord and violence in the U.S. From what I just read to you, can you really substantiate that headline with the information that's presented? And when you read stuff, what are you doing? Are you just reading the headline, or are you actually digging in to see if these guys are trying to pull the wool over your eyes or not? This article gets my absolute disrespect. I have zero respect for this article. Okay, now I'm not going to mention the journalist's name. Okay, you can find it yourself in NBC News. But I'm sorry, this is not journalism. I would be ashamed to put my name on that. I would be. I would not call myself a journalist if I were writing that. As a marketer, if I were trying to persuade someone to come to a particular conclusion, and if I knew that I could tap dance around the reality of what was happening to create an impression, I would say that that is effective marketing. I respect that as marketing. I do not respect that as journalism. I think those two things need to be separate. Okay? Guys, I don't like to be a negative dude. I don't like to get people thinking about stuff, that's a problem. I don't want people to be victims. That's totally not my intention at all. All right? In fact, what I think is that by analyzing this stuff, you will empower yourself. Because the only way that we're being victimized right now is by being manipulated by crap like this. Okay? And there are probably people, I believe that there are people out there trying to sow racial discord in the United States. I think there are people out there deliberately doing it. Is it the Russians? Is it the Chinese? Is it people inside the United States? Is it the DSA? Is it the Trump supporters? Who is it, right? Who are the people that are trying to sow racial discord? I have my own suspicions, but I can't know. But I do feel pretty strongly that it's happening, okay? That's just a feeling, though. And I only see certain types of evidence. That evidence doesn't tell me who's responsible. Okay, but what I can tell you for sure is I know who's responsible for my own actions. I know I'm responsible for how I conduct myself in front of other people. Okay, and me being responsible does not involve me bowing down in shame because I'm a white man. Okay, that's not me being racially responsible. That's not me trying to heal the wounds, that have occurred, over centuries between the races in the United States. Me bowing down and being less of a person, which a lot of people are asking folks to do because they are white or straight, or God forbid, a straight white male. Oh my God, you're a monster. There are even people on Twitter saying, on your way to work today, shoot a straight white man. And that guy's account doesn't get banned. Okay? Me trying to heal racial tensions does not involve me lessening myself. Isn't that exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do? Isn't what we're trying to do here empowering ourselves? And that's only going to come from us respecting each other. Okay, so the way that we heal this stuff is how we show up on a one-to-one basis. That means treating everybody with respect, being sensitive to them, listening, hearing people out. Okay, but never in that process am I going to apologize for who I happen to be because of my birth. That's exactly the reason why racism is a problem. Because we're asking people to feel less than because of something that they have no control over. I don't have any control over the fact that I was born a straight white man. I could probably choose to be otherwise through hormonal adjustment or something, but I don't choose to because I'm happy with who I am. Nor would I ask a black man to feel bad for who he is, or a Native American man to feel bad for who he is, or an Asian man to feel bad for who he is. Someone asking me to do the same thing is just as ugly, it's just as racist. So this is all about us, guys. It's all about us as individuals. And part of us showing up the right way as individuals is us getting in there and understanding the news. Read articles like that with a critical eye. Look at the headline and ask yourself, is that headline actually justified with what they're saying? When you got flimsy stuff like, you know what, we haven't actually verified these documents ourselves, but we're perfectly happy to make a conclusive statement in the headline, that should tell you a whole lot right there. I don't trust any of it, guys. I don't care whether it's coming from the left or the right. I think it's all garbage. Even the stuff that, there's a lot of people who say that a lot of the fake news is coming from the left now. There's just as bad fake news coming from the right. Okay? It's been just as ugly. Fox has been getting away with it for years. They've done, a lot of their stuff is just as hysterical, just as over the top, just as emotionally manipulative as a lot of the other stuff. Okay? I don't trust any of it. What I trust is what I see with my own eyes. What I trust is the way I choose to show up every day. That's it. That's all I have control over. All right, you guys, you have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. I look forward to your feedback and your opinions about what I said today. And I openly ask you, I invite you to challenge me.